All right, well, 7:30, so I'd like to call the Lake Orion Planning Commission meeting to order. So do you want to handle the roll call, please?
Nicholas Smith,
Here.
Raymond Hammond,
Here.
Smith Van Portfleet, Edward Zabel, Henry Laurent,
Here.
Robert Reigard,
Here.
Jim Cummins,
Excused.
Chairman Zenyuk.
Here.
Joe Young. There is a quorum.
Okay. So with that, do we need to adopt the Planning Commission policy regarding virtual
Yes,
meetings?
that we have to do.
Okay.
Just a motion to do that.
Okay, so does anyone wish to make a motion on adopt? I guess this is I guess this is public participation in virtual meetings.
Right. It's not addressed in any of the bylaws that the Planning Commission had because this was never permitted before. But as part of this process, we were asked to make sure we adopt a policy that allows for public participation that follow all the rules and regulations that are set forth in the executive order, and that is what this is.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion. Joe Young, motion to adopt Planning Commission policy number 2020-001, public input policy for virtual meeting as presented.
Second.
Okay. So with it moved and supported, any discussion? All in favor?
Got to be a roll call.
Roll call, please. Yeah, roll call, please.
Young,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Yeah.
Zabel.
Yeah.
Laurent,
Yes.
Beard.
Yeah.
Zenyuk.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. So now we need a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Any support?
Second.
And a roll call vote, please.
Smith,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Van Portfleet,
Yes.
Zabel,
Yes.
Laurent,
Yes.
Reard, Zenyuk,
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, and with that, we need a motion to approve tonight's minute.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as recorded in the agenda.
Moved and supported, Hammond and Van Portfleet. Roll call vote, please.
Hammond,
Yes.
Van Portfleet,
Yes.
Zabel,
Yes.
Laurent,
Yes.
Reard, Cummins. Oh, Zenyuk,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, Sue, how do we handle the call from the public?
Okay, call to the public. We have no one, I'm just making a record of it, that we have no participation from the public on the Zoom meeting. We have no one on the telephone asking to participate in public comment, and I have not received any emails, so you can close the call to the public now.
Okay, we will do that and move on to new business. I noticed Laura is not on this call.
Yes, she is.
Oh, she is? For some reason. Hi, Laura. I don't see you. Oh, there you are. So Laura, do you want to take over the new business site plan approval? Would this go to you?
Yes, thank you. And good evening, commissioners. Laura Haw, planning consultant with McKenna. The application before you starts on packet page 13. That is the start of our site plan review letter for 2 outdoor eating establishments at 120 South Broadway for Bitter Tom's Distillery. As noted in the application, the 2 outdoor dining areas are on the east facade of the building and would be fenced in and offering food and alcoholic beverages to patrons. The MLCC has granted approval for the service of alcoholic beverages at the site. Now, per our current ordinance, outdoor dining establishments require a site plan review and approval by the Planning Commission, which is why we're going through this process. Starting on the bottom of packet page 13 and continuing on to packet page 14 are the standards of the ordinance that are outlined in bold text, and our comments follow. In general, we find that there is enough pedestrian circulation to meet the minimums, and also clearance for emergency access to the establishment, the building itself, and to the 2 patio areas with the gates. However, we do note that any use of the public right-of-way will require village council approval at a subsequent meeting. And the second standard is that the outdoor area shall be kept clean and no food shall be prepared outside. That is not a part of Bitter Tom's application. And the third is that the furniture be complementary to the architecture and character of the building, subject to your review and approval. The 2 outdoor areas will consist of tables and chairs that will offer seating for approximately 20 patrons. They have provided photographs of the furniture for the patio and also for the fence. Both the furniture and the fence will match the existing patio that Bitter Tom's has to the south of their current structure. And the fencing will be between 3 and 4 feet in height and black aluminum to match the existing. We find that this will be compatible as it is consistent with what they have out there today, but also complements the building. So the first recommendation is a very easy one. We are recommending the Planning Commission grant approval of this site plan, contingent on Village Council approving use of the right-of-way. And the second recommendation that we are making, and this is on packet page 14, is that to reduce the barriers and alleviate a future applicant from having to go through this process of applying and waiting to go to the Planning Commission, that the village consider a resolution in support of outdoor dining to be handled administratively. And we understand the village is working to that effect. That's a temporary measure for the rest of this year. I think also equally as important, though, our third recommendation going forward is that we consider a text amendment to this section of the ordinance so that future applicants don't have to go through this, I'd say, unnecessarily burdensome process for outdoor approval. That doesn't mean that they wouldn't have any permit. This would still go through the village administration for approval, but it does help kind of remove some of that tape to promote outdoor dining, which many municipalities consider an asset. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The first recommendation is really the only recommendation that needs a motion this evening.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Question, Joe?
Just the applicant, Tom Bosley, is trying to get it. Is he on? Can we hear him? Or can he hear us?
Mr. Bosley, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll try to get the video going. Well, there we go.
Here you go.
Sorry, I've only done like 3 of these so far.
He's on his stick.
So I just kind of caught what my name basically, so I don't know what you guys said ahead of that as far as where you started.
Laura, do you want to answer that?
Sure, happy to. Hi, Tom. Laura Ha, planning consultant for the village. We went over the memorandum that's in the applicant or the planning commissioner's packet that details a review of your proposed outdoor spaces. And we find that it meets the ordinance standards and we don't have any concerns. We are recommending that the commission approve your 2 outdoor seating areas, and that would be subject to village council approval for the right-of-way along 120 South Broadway.
So, we actually, to my knowledge, are on private property, because our intention, I know you guys have a lot going on with, potential expansion of seating, of outdoor seating because of everything going on, with the pandemic. But what I've applied for, both seating areas are on private property, of 120 South Broadway. So under this, because we want this to be permanent, it won't even touch any of the city sidewalk right away. Everything we would do today would be on the property of 120 South Broadway. So I know you just said something about having to do getting city council approval because of right of way, but we're staying on private property.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bosley. Does any commission members have any questions?
Have one.
Ken?
Was looking forward to making the motion that we accept the consultant's recommendations. And the one thing that I thought about in the reading of the text of it, and Mr. Bosley just kind of hit it on the nail on the head as well. He's looking for it to be permanent. And I think it was this proposal here is that we give him a 1-year outdoor seating opportunity. Is that accurate? And the liquor license that he has obtained is a 2-year permit for outdoor, if I read correctly. And so I was thinking, why not have the duration follow the permit length? Or in this case, with it being on private property, why not make it permanent? But going forward, I was thinking about having the permits follow the license duration. Just a quick thought. And I, other than that, I'm open to the motion, but go ahead.
Okay. Any other? I like that, Ken. I think that makes a lot of sense. Anyone else have any comments?
Right here.
Questions?
So, why I'm kind of against it is because we do this the same for everybody. I don't know that it's a good idea that we're going to have a bunch of other establishments who want to do the same thing, and although his tables may be on what he considers private property, most likely the people won't always be on private property. Now, I'm good. I know the DDA is trying to come up with a plan, at least for this summer, and I think it's a great plan. It involves all the establishments, and I like that idea. I don't like this particular idea myself.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from any commissioners?
I have one more.
Commissioner Van Portfley.
Yeah. If we all don't know, as of 3 o'clock today, the governor approved phase 4, which is 50% seating capacity and 100% outdoors with social distancing. So I am excited for our community and the restaurants. And I stopped down in Mr. Bosley's restaurant this evening before the commission meeting and talked with his partner, his wife. And even at 50%, it's still going to be tough. And I think that whatever we can do going forward is important, that we look for solutions to help the business. but I just want to mention phase 4 because I'm excited about it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I had one. I
Yep.
want to clarify on the application, it says you're looking to add 20 seats. However, the actual layout is only 4 tables and 8 chairs. Is that accurate, Tom, or not?
Well, we just put that out there because we knew we're going to have to follow the 6-foot social distancing even when we're allowed to open. So we basically, the tables that at this point, before getting approval, we had tables that we pulled out to make the 6-foot spacing on the patio on the side, on the south side. So we put those in the front. We have not, until we get the fence up and see what we can do. There's obviously going to be a difference between what we can do under the today's order that came down versus what we can do hopefully at some point in the future when we're allowed to go 100%.
Hey, Tom, those tables out in front, are those 4 tables in front?
Yeah, so right now the only thing we have out there is we have 4 2 top tables, basically 2 to the left and 2 to the right of the entrance.
And those are 2-seaters, right?
Yeah, yep. So there's only 8 seats. Ultimately, what our plan was to put 8 total seats on. If you're facing the entrance to the right or to the north, we would have 8 total seats inside the fenced area, and then on the south side we would have 12 seats in the fenced area. But with the social distancing thing and everything else, until we get the fence up and kind of figure out the spacing, we probably won't get to that 20 person for some time.
All right, with that said, any motion? Any more discussion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the recommendation set forth by McKenna.
Support?
So moved and supported. Ken, are you base that on 1 year or to follow the license with 2 years?
I would like to do the license of 2 years. We can certainly debate that after this motion.
Okay,
I would like it to follow, I should say, the applicant's license for outdoor service, their duration.
So
okay.
is that your motion or is your motion McKenna's recommended motion?
McKenna's recommended with a change of it following the MLCC's licensing date for duration.
All right, Mr. Smith, do you still support that?
Yes.
All right, with that said, we will do a roll call vote, please.
Van Portfleet,
Yes.
Sable,
You're muted, Ed.
Yeah.
Laurent,
Yes.
Reard,
No.
Young,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Senya.
Yes. With that said, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Bosley, get some tables out there. And
Mr. Bosley. Could I ask a question, Mr. Bosley?
Sure can.
I'm impressed. You folks in our application here, you've already received your outdoor liquor license from MLCC. And when I asked your wife, she said it was relatively fast. How fast did it work for you, sir? I mean, was it something that you added on to an existing request for a permit, or was it over just 5 days? Or how quick was it?
We got the notification of approval approximately 1 week or so, 10 days after submittal. what I was told is because of that type of a request, because we're already a licensed establishment, it is, I forget the term they use, but basically it doesn't have to go to the higher ups. It is made basically by the person that approved the initial license. So you don't have to go through the same hoops to get this approval. It's
Right.
just an amendment to the license.
Great. Joe, we need to make sure that we get those other applications in for the other restaurants that are wondering and and get her going. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Basil.
If you guys need any help, I certainly can put you in touch with the person that helped me with my file that got it done within days. So we certainly will help out with everybody else that's trying to do the expansion as well.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bosley, for joining us.
Hey, I appreciate you guys and ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for the approval. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so we will now move on to item number 2 of new business, parking standards in the DC Downtown Center District. Laura, would you like to discuss this, please?
Yes, thank you. This agenda item starts on packet page 28, and we have discussed the current ordinance provisions related to parking in the downtown district at previous meetings. And I think we are all in agreement that the current provisions are not constructive. So the current provisions are listed there at the bottom of 28. But moving to page 29, we summarize the implications of the current ordinance, which effectively has created a parking exempt district where the required parking spaces can be satisfied by public parking or private lots within 300 feet of the building. So after review and discussion, we recommend that this current section 14.08 of the zoning ordinance, is amended and portions replaced. The draft ordinance for your consideration is in your packet. Effectively, the new ordinance would provide that any future new developments in the downtown center district, that would either be a new use or it would be an expansion of an existing use, would have to comply with our current parking standards of the village. So this means that the property owner would need to provide on-site parking or pay a fee in lieu if they are unable to provide that on-street parking. So in this vein, the 300-foot parking exempt district from that building is not available anymore. I'd like to read a section here on packet page 29. It says, a payment in lieu fee requires new developments to assist in creating needed public parking infrastructure, but also allows for better planning of a more centralized public parking and mobility system. This also discourages parking sprawl, since each individual property is not necessarily creating their own parking supply. In review of how other municipalities are managing and operating this payment in lieu system, we are recommending a couple things. The first is that the fee would be set by resolution of Village Council. This allows for the fee to be more easily amended in the future. We have seen the payment costs range in Southeast Michigan from $5,000 to $13,000 per parking space. We recommend that prior to Village Council consideration of a fee, that the village's engineers give a construction cost estimate to accurately reflect today's conditions. We recommend that this payment would need to be submitted prior to the applicant obtaining their final certificate of occupancy. And then that this payment would be deposited into a dedicated parking in lieu fund. I suspect maybe that this would need to be a new fund separate from a current parking fund that the village has, to be used exclusively for public parking improvements. And that would include related transportation improvements, so sidewalk, crosswalk, lighting, wayfinding to those public parking areas. Anything that tangibly improves that downtown mobility experience. There are some drawbacks to a payment in lieu system. It's entirely dependent on development. So if there are no uses coming into the downtown or there's no expansions, then there's no funding that accompanies that. There's also no controls on the timing. So you could receive a flood of new developments and a significant payment in lieu fund contribution one year and very little the next. So there's no control on that timing. The existing uses would also be grandfathered in. So you wouldn't be able to go to a business today and say, you need to provide this parking without them changing their use or expanding. If the village wanted to address every single property owner today, then we would need to do a uniform special assessment district, an SAD. And that would be in a different direction, and the payment in lieu would not be the best tool to use. And that's really the parking side of this memo. And then on page 30, we also go into bicycle parking and design standards. We've talked about these provisions before, and kind of encouraging non-motorized forms of transportation in the downtown by making it more accessible and convenient. And this could be at a very small scale at first. It's not to say that every business must provide, tons and tons of bicycle parking. It needs to be to scale with the village. But we are seeing this in many municipalities across Michigan, and it's become a more standard provision in promoting the complete street philosophy. Lastly, on page 30, and then moving into page 31, we list a number of other related provisions that might impact these parking standards. So for instance, the minimum parking requirements. I have a quote in here from the Michigan Association of Planning that says, parking significantly increases the cost of construction. Developers will either pass this cost onto the new building's occupants or cut back on the scale, quality, and/or design of what they built. When the parking requirement is greater than necessary, which is often the case if downtown zoning codes are not adjusted, this will reduce investment in downtown, making living, working, doing business, and visiting the downtown more expensive. So there is a correlation between the minimum parking standards that we have, those ratios, and this payment in lieu process and removing the parking exempt district. There's also some other considerations such as valet parking and shared loading zones that may be applicable. So we're recommending feedback on the draft ordinances. If the village would like to go the route of the payment in lieu, then we recommend the village attorney begin review, and we will hold the public hearing. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So I'm assuming this is a receive and file too, Laura?
I think it would be a recommendation if the village wanted to pursue these two ordinances. The first would be the parking in the downtown district, and the second would be the bicycle parking, that the recommendation would be to send to the village attorney for review.
All right. Any discussion then?
I got something to say. So, we tried to solve some of this problem with metered parking, and a lot of the businesses that actually take up the most parking did the most complaining. Here's my problem, okay? I don't have a problem with new businesses coming in requiring them to make payments. But our problem exists right now is with the businesses that are already taking up too many parking spaces that aren't providing. So I think if we go to these businesses and say, hey, look, either put in meter parking to help force people to go, back instead of, filling up children's parking lot and some of these other ones, or you're gonna pay for so many, people, so many spaces that we think you take, because you're providing zero parking and you're taking up the majority of it. And like I say, if they have to pay out of their pocket, they may be more wanting to go with the meter version of the parking. But all I'm saying is, it can't just be for new structures coming in. It has to be for the current, because it's not going to help the problem we already have.
Ray, were you, Ken? I saw your hand up, Ken.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments, and I thank you, Laura, because I didn't realize that the pay in lieu somewhat cancels, and to Mr. Reard's comments, the ability to create a SAD later, or to do a SAD. The SAD would be going to all businesses saying, hey, look, we are looking to improve our parking, and we're looking for a contribution based upon this formula and your use and your patrons that visit your place. A pay in lieu will only be affected, or will only affect new development or change of use and new renovation, correct? Which I think there's going to be kind of a minimal new development and change in use and renovation. So we'll still be forced or faced with the parking issue. So I'm struggling between an actual SAD or pay in lieu. And I have a few comments. That's my first thought. And then I have a few comments about the actual document itself, because I believe that's what you were seeking tonight, is input about the document.
Okay.
So would you like me to give you a couple comments on the document?
Certainly, I'd be happy to take comments on the ordinance itself, if that's the direction that the village wants to move in.
Okay.
If you are considering the SAD, which is a more lengthy process, then we should just ignore this now and immediately start working towards that. But I think that's something that it would be our recommendation that the Planning Commission, the Village Council, and the DDA are all in agreement that the SAD is the way to go.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because I think either one of them are going to be difficult, because the SAD, we've got businesses that have contributed parking. They bought property and tore down a building to contribute parking. So I think either one of them will be difficult.
Any other comments?
I did have one. Go ahead, Nick.
I just had a comment relative to the payment in lieu, and basically the wording that's italicized here, an example from Northville that speaks to a 10-year period paid at interest, just as an example. My only concern, just again reading this, was just if a company, let's say, and I know the time frame can change, but let's say the time frame is 10 years, the company doesn't make 10 years, what would happen in that given case? So that was just my example. But Ken, I kind of reading through this earlier, but diving into the SAD, I hear your concerns as well, and what that would potentially drive for businesses. So I hear your comments too, but just wanted to bring that up. I'm not sure how that would work if a company didn't survive the term of the payment.
And
Go ahead, Joe. You.
normally, special assessment is a lien against the property, normally. So if there were a business to go out, the proceeds of the business would be towards taxes and any special assessments that might be out there generally. Now, this is a little different because it's not for an existing public improvement, because it could be still on deposit with an account not spent. So we'd have to check into seeing legally if there's an issue with it not being an actual parking lot versus money in the bank.
Robert?
So the problem too with the pay and lieu is that, like if you look at, Rochester, some of these other places, they have a constant yearly pay for these visits. Because $5,000, $10,000, whatever it may be, okay, is short lived. I mean, so you would have to be able to support this, you know, for the distance, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So just a flat fee, whether you take it over, many years or up front, it still isn't going to be enough to maintain it. That's why I said you got two options, in my opinion. Either do the parking meters, or businesses have to pay so much money every year, like the other cities do.
All right. So, is that the feedback you're looking for, Laura? Yeah, Joe, I'll get to you in 1 second. Laura, is that the feedback you're looking for from this? Or are you looking more in the direction, does the village want to go towards a SAD, in which case, don't waste our time with anything, correct?
Correct. If the village is interested in the SAD, then this ordinance would need to be revised anyway, but it's gonna take a different direction.
Joe, go ahead. You wanted to.
Yield to Ken first.
All right.
I've always maintained that we should have pay for parking downtown. And if we have pay for parking downtown, then the burden shifts, or the revenue stream is from the people that come here to have dinner or entertainment, and it's not directly on the business. And I think that's really the best way that it should be done yet today. And then also consider pay for lieu for new development would be my kind of two-prong approach. Otherwise, I favor pay for lieu with no grandfathering. Why do we have to grandfather?
We're not going to go.
Robert. Joe, why don't you go ahead, and then Robert, we'll give you a chance.
Well, it's grandfathered because we're not going to go back and charge people a payment of parking for what they have today.
Well, it wouldn't be a retroactive case. It would just be pay for lieu program that's based upon your patronage and the people that are coming to visit your business. It'll be hard for some businesses because I can see problems there, because they're going to be, gosh, I got to pay for 3 parking spaces. And so I think that's where pay for parking, a metered parking solution, really takes care of it.
Yeah.
So Robert, we'll get to you. Joe, do you want to follow up?
I just want to comment, it's sort of like a special assessment by doing it that way, but the use that we're looking at too is an issue, and office use we would welcome downtown during the day. It's the restaurant and evening weekend use is our problem. So having a payment in lieu for offices is not what we don't want to discourage them. We want them to be here. It's if they have someone changes a use to a restaurant, which is the highest use, obviously, because all the others are 250 square feet per space, whether it's an office or retail. That's one car space for every 250 square feet. So we, really targeting the restaurants and the nightlife weekend people that we're having the parking shortage on.
Robert?
I agree with Ken. Unless we get rid of the grandfather, we're not doing any good. Okay, the reason why the meters, they're very cheap, $1 an hour. Hell, even if somebody parked in front of their work there and they're not supposed to, 8 hours is still cheap. You can't go park downtown or any major cities for that kind of money. So somebody's going to have to pay it. So it's either going to have to be when people come downtown and park, and you don't have to have it at 10 a.m. in the morning. Maybe it doesn't start till a certain time, or we can do certain things, especially like I say, someone just running in to pick up something you can have a 15-minute free or something like that. There's so many options with the meter program. Okay, there's no option once you start charging these businesses, and they can't pay it. They go out of business. So where we gain. Now I grant you that maybe on new construction, I mean where there's a vacant lot or a building torn down, maybe we could justify the parking a little better than we have in the past. But in existing buildings, you're pretty much stuck. There's not a whole lot you can do. So I've always been a proponent of meter parking. It works everywhere else. There's no reason why it won't work here. And it's just the best way of going. And all I'm saying is go to like 20th Front Street or these places and say, hey, look, we have no choice. You either have to put in meter parking or it's going to cost you this much money per year. You're going to see a different attitude from these people.
Okay. Yeah, Laura?
If I could just add a couple things. I would like to check with the village attorney on the grandfathering and if there could be a sunset clause if she thinks that that's legally defensible. I don't see a conflict between the payment in lieu and simultaneously having metered parking for on-street. I think those are two different things. The metered parking would be mostly paid by patrons coming into Lake Orion, right, and using those prime parking spaces, and that would help fund over time the maintenance of those parking meters. Whereas the payment in lieu parking would maybe go towards larger public parking improvements in surface lots or improving sidewalks and crosswalks to parking lots that maybe are a little bit further outside the downtown area. I do think that the payment in lieu, because the ordinance, because of how it's written today, the Planning Commission really doesn't have an option because there is that exempt district. So if a new development comes in tomorrow, legally, they're not required to provide parking on their site. So by changing this and at least requiring the payment in lieu, even if it's for the remainder of the year, since it's kind of an easier ordinance to adopt and set up that fund, that might be a nice catch until the DDA and the council decide if the SAD is the appropriate tool going forward and if there's the appetite to go through that process. But at least you're not losing in the interim. It just might be one.
Commissioner Smith had his hand up.
Thank you. I just had and I apologize for not knowing, but is there like do we have any idea of the revenue that we're looking to generate, or is there a target because we have a plan for that location at this point? Or, I guess whether it's metering or lieu, is there a certain number that we're looking to generate? And then maybe that can help drive some of the conversation.
Ken?
Well, I'll yield to Joe because he could probably answer that question.
Yeah, I guess the target would be, for example, the parking lot we put on Slater Street. We spent $300,000 for the land, and we're going to spend another probably $200,000 improving it. So, and that's adding about 50 spaces. So it could be a lot of money if we're looking to expand parking elsewhere or build a deck, which even is more expensive.
Ray, you got your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. After listening to this, and I admit I don't have a lot of background on it, I just kind of have a feel for how I think these things should be. I'm against the SAD and the pay in lieu. I'm really empathetic to the small business environment right now, especially with what's going on and what the future may or may not hold. I don't know. We don't know. I think we're just to put this fixed cost on our small businesses. To me, it's just a burden that I don't think they can bear. I like the idea of prime parking meters that become a variable cost instead of a fixed cost. And if times are good, they generate a good amount of revenue. Then the off-street lots, we can leave them as open or free for normal commerce, and then maybe turn them into pay lots during festivals or certain things like Dragon on the Lake. I don't know. It's just an idea. I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but I don't like the idea of putting fixed costs through the form of a SAD, which is, as Joe said, that's a tax liability that doesn't go away. And if you put a pay in lieu, then you've got another fixed cost for startup or arrears payments or something. I'm just against saddling our small businesses with more fixed costs. I prefer to go a variable route. Thank you.
Ken, we'll get to you, Robert.
We've had a number of parking studies, and we've had a couple of companies come in and talk to us, and we had a real good one that was going to install meters and manage the whole parking metering / automated ticketing system, all for 50% of the revenue, not one dime paid for by us. And I believe the estimate at that time, and Joe could correct me if I'm wrong, was that it might generate roughly about $30,000 to $50,000 a year for parking lot maintenance and whatever else we may deem to use it for. And that always made the most sense to me. The DDA chose not to look at it because they felt that any further this year, because they felt that it would possibly impede business. But it doesn't mean, and that could be true with this current downturn, but it doesn't mean that paid for parking could not be looked at in 2021 or something like that.
Joe, you want to answer that, and then Robert, we'll get to you.
Many of the businesses did not want pay to park. And I think they might be more amenable if we were to charge them an assessment, a maintenance or improvement assessment, rather than charge their customers.
Robert?
Yes, that was, I was going to talk about what Ken was talking about. Not maybe not have that information on this board, but yes, the companies are going to cost us anything for them to come in through their people. So, I mean, to me, that was a win-win. And as I said before, I think this has to go to these businesses and give them the opportunity to make a choice. Say, well, you're going to pay X dollars for as long as you're here, every year, we put parking. Make your choice. I guarantee you they'll make the choice to put parking. They can always give somebody a voucher or something, you know. I mean, even like 20th Front Street, which really takes a big chunk of that lot back there. I don't know how long the show was, 2, 3, 4 hours. So, I mean, you could add $4 to a ticket and voucher the parking. So, I mean, there's a lot of options, but when you're getting away with free parking all this time, you don't want to take it, but it's take any option. But if you've got a choice out of your pocket or out of your clientele or your patrons' pocket, you're going to have a different thought on this process. And like I say, I don't know hardly any cities anymore, villages, or whatever, that don't have, metered parking. Clarkson, Rochester, well, of course, Detroit. I mean, every place is doing it because it's the most intelligent way of doing it.
Okay, thank you. Laura, was this what you were looking for?
Well, what I'm hearing is that that there isn't 100% consensus on the payment in lieu, that there's concern about passing it on to the small businesses, and that it may not be enough of a steady stream of income that you're looking for over time. Just posing the question, if there was a new development that came in 3 months later this summer, and they proposed to completely maximize their lot with the building and wanted to use the public parking lots for their parking completely, would the commission be in favor of that? Or do you think that would just add to the existing tensions of the parking supply today?
Yeah, Ken?
I think that I'll use the example of the most current 4-story high-rise. They provided their own parking. And I would expect that anybody that would come in to do a development or investment would provide their own parking as well, because they'd want to ensure that they have success and are going to hinder their success by not providing their own parking, number one. And then number two, the planning commission can ask for them to provide their parking in their design plan.
I would say that the parking for 120 South Broadway, the minimum for the residential tenants was met, but not for the commercial. The same for Dia's building adjacent. There's no parking on site, right? All of that is just going into either on street or the public surface lot.
That's
So,
true.
and while I think the planning commission could make a recommendation, especially if it was a special land use where there's some more discretionary concern, as long as the language is in the ordinance that allows for an exempt district legally, I think that's still a cause for concern if that's not the direction that the commission wants to go in.
But my understanding was, with conversations with Mr. Young, that we were looking, the village council, and Joe and I had talked about just abolishing the district that it currently exists where you don't have to provide parking. Remove that. Just stop it. Just take that away until we figure out pay for parking or what are we going to truly do. But that should already be, Joe, am I incorrect? That should be being worked on right now. Just remove the exemption from our district. No longer does it exist. If you come here, you need to provide parking. The exemption is gone.
But that's what this ordinance provides for.
But it's a pay in lieu though. It has money attached to it. I'm saying just remove the exemption.
Only if you don't want to provide your own parking.
Robert, we get this in a second. Laura, you,
I was just going to say that the proposed ordinance does require the business to provide parking on site or do the payment in lieu. But if we just removed completely the provision for the parking exempt district, then it would put any new development and any expansion of development in a tight situation, I think, because they would fall back on the parking standards and having to comply with those. So then every new development would need to seek a variance essentially for their parking. And if we're trying to encourage different uses and office in the downtown, that's just another meeting, that's more money, that's another hurdle that the developer has to go through.
Robert?
I agree with you, Ken. Like I said, it's like where the pet place was that burnt down, where that's a vacant lot, that you require that whatever goes there provides parking. But I still say that existing buildings have no option to do that. So I think that existing buildings have to be able to use the village to provide them parking. Whether you have to charge them straight parking somewhere or you go to a meter system. And I grant you, I agree with you. New construction, I think maybe we should have done that with the 4-story building. You know, we let them build it to cover the residential, but they don't cover their commercial. So I do think maybe you're right about new construction. But existing, I don't know how you could deal with that any other way but about.
Right. Any other discussion?
You know, I would hope very quickly that we need parking again. But I think it's gonna take a long time to come back.
I have a tendency to agree with you, and I think businesses running at 50% occupancy are going to have a tough time picking up any extra cost. And I think we just squeeze businesses out of business by doing something like that. Just that's my opinion. So again, Laura, Laura and Sue, I don't know if this is really asking for the feedback. I think he kind of, I think we're not leaning towards an SAD. If that's what you were, Joe.
I move we receive.
Any second?
Support.
Moved and supported. Roll call vote, please.
Joe, can you repeat your motion?
It's just to receive and file the.
Okay.
So I think we've had our discussions. So roll call vote, please.
Sable,
Yes.
Laurent,
Yes.
Reard,
Yeah,
Young,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Van Portfleet,
Yeah.
Chairman Senya.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Right. Thank you. A lot of that. And I think Laura, that's what you were looking for, getting some feedback. I think you got plenty of it. Okay, so moving on to the item 8, old business. Do we have any old business? Does not look like it. None. Oh, thank you. So now on to commissioners' comments. We'll try to do this since there's no table and I have to scroll through. Bear with me. So we'll start with Mr. Young.
Just wanted to, that we will present to the village council resolutions to allow for outdoor expansion of restaurants and personal services and retail and also office. So if they wanted to set up outdoor facilities or sidewalk sales or tables, proposing that for council on Monday night, which ties in partly with the MLCC outdoor expansion license, but it's also to address, like, for example, even hairdressers, if they want to have outside service, because some customers may prefer that. Even office people may prefer that. But we're trying to accommodate them and have the customers feel comfortable. And by doing that, what we're looking at is taking the first 5 feet of the parking lane on each side and making that the sidewalk. So the businesses could expand to the front of their building on the existing sidewalk, but we would be looking at, this isn't for sure right now, but that's the plan, subject to having safety barriers and safety markings in the middle of the road to calm the traffic, so we don't have any issues out there. So that's what the committee met on this morning and what we're looking at to have council consider Monday night.
All right. Thank you. Hank, I'm just going to go in the order that everyone's on my desktop.
I don't have anything.
Right. Ray?
I'm good, thank you.
Ken?
I had been thinking today about just a comment, social distancing and how it may affect planning going forward. I think some of these things will become new normal that we're experiencing today. I just wanted to make that comment because I continue to wonder how things will change with like heating capacities and things like that. Downtown, there's consideration, just if you didn't know, for a wireless broadcasting system to pipe music downtown and into our Children's Park, Greens Park, in the consideration of enhancing walkability and draw more people downtown. So that's out there. I'm excited today again about the phase 4 that the governor allowed. And there's discussion now about phase 5 before July 4th. And if you didn't know, there's been quite a bit of money raised for a fireworks show this 4th of July, like upwards of about $22,000 so far on a GoFundMe page. So the possibility exists that we may have 4th of July fireworks. One of my concerns I have, it's a good bad thing, is we have had before us private businesses considering turning their existing parking lots into outdoor seating. I'm sorry, let me cancel that. And although in some ways they're right to do what they would like, it's a very well tasteful consideration as far as design and stuff like that. It takes away parking. But then again, what's our real issues today? Because do we have parking problems? No. So anyways, that's going to be coming in forward. And then this is not really a planning and zoning matter, but I wonder about the wisdom of covering the crosswalk symbols and timers with black plastic bags. People are still crossing the street even though there's construction going on, and they have no guidance. And I don't, that one doesn't work for me logically. I don't get it.
I would agree with you, Ken, being one of those people that's crossing the street on how do I get across?
So that's it for me. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Robert?
Nothing.
All right. Nick?
Yeah, I just wanted to first just thank the Planning Commission, the village, and its residents for this opportunity to be on the commission. I'm gonna do my best to serve the commission and the residents as best I can. So just wanted to thank everybody for the.
Welcome.
Yes. And we lost your signal. Oh, there you go. Okay. Thank you, Nick, and welcome. Ed?
All set.
All right. Thank you. My comments was to welcome Nick to the Planning Commission, since this is our first official meeting with him. So welcome. And, again, parking in what we're dealing with right now, I think is small potatoes. I think we need to get businesses back and moving. So with that, move for adjournment.
Move.
Any support?
Yes.
Moved and supported. So I guess we have to take an official roll call vote.
Young,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Van Portfleet,
Yes.
Sable,
Yes.
Laurent,
Yes.
Reard.
Yep.
Senya.
Yes. With that, meeting's adjourned, and we'll see everybody next month. Is that right, Sue?